last one. So this will be practice test 3. So every one of these practice tests has had a full-page problem on it, where you have to graph it and identify all the important stuff, like vertical asymptotes, horizontal asymptotes, holes, y-intercepts, and x-intercepts. Alright, so there's our problem. Remember, next time you're doing this totally by yourself. You gotta have a plan, you gotta have at least a thought on how to start. What's your thought on how to start? Factor it. Absolutely.
Yes.
Factor it. So let's see, the top factors, -5 plus 1. Now be careful on the bottom. You've got to notice something about the bottom. What do you notice down here? You can take out the GCF, the greatest common factor, the 2. So if we take the 2 out, we're left with x squared minus 1, which factors as the difference of squares. So we have our 2, and then we have x minus 1, x plus 1. Now we see we can cancel, right?
Yeah.
We can cancel. Means our new problem is going to be this. And we're going to have a hole. And what will be the x coordinate of that hole? What will it be? -1. And how will we get the y coordinate so that we can plot it? Plug -1 in here. So if we put -1 in there, we get -1 minus 5 over 2 times -1 minus 1. So let's see, that's -6 over 2 times -2, -6 over -4, that reduces to 3 over 2. So -1, 3/2.
Excuse interruption, is Solomon Devonish in the room?
Yes.
Can you please have him gather his things and report to student services?
Okay.
Thank you.
Go ahead. This will all be videoed so you can watch it. All right, now what? What else do we know?
I just got it.
What else do we know? Come on. Where's the horizontal asymptote? Y equals 1/2. And you can see that right here. This is how we find horizontal asymptotes. Or you actually could have seen it in the very, very beginning of the problem too. 1/2. All right. So put that in. All right, what else? I can't hear you. What'd you say? The vertical asymptote is x equals 1. Where do vertical asymptotes come from? The denominator. All right, how about our intercepts? They're points. How do we find them? Will?
Replace the x's with 0.
Yeah, well, yeah, I'm gonna do each letter, but one option, or one thing I have to do is let all the x's be 0. So if I let all of the x's be 0, I'm gonna put 0 in for the x's. I'm gonna get -5 on the top. So it's gonna say y equals -5 over 2 times -1. What is that? 5 halves. So my intercept is 1, 2 1/2, 0, 5 halves. It's my y-intercept. It's where I cross the y-axis. So now I've already put 0 in for x, so now I'll put 0 in for y. And when I do that, because that's a 0, and I'm going to multiply this over, and it's still going to be 0, I'm basically just solving that right there. So my x-intercept is going to be at 5. So I find intercepts by letting each letter be 0. Plug in 0 and figure out what the other one is. All right, now I got to be able to draw a picture or sketch in the picture. Can you see it? Hopefully you can. You know what it needs to look like, right? It needs to look like a reciprocal function. So it looks like this. If you plot your points, you know, do all this stuff, and it's not going to generate a picture like that, then this stuff's wrong. You should always end up with a picture like that. Now, they might be this way, but you should always end up with that shape.
And they can never cross the asymptote.
Not the vertical asymptotes. They can never cross the vertical asymptotes. And these won't cross the horizontals. It's possible for other curves to do that. But these are always going to be framed right in there just like that. Okay? If you still don't know where these things came from, it's time to get that memorized. So you know vertical asymptotes come from the bottom. Horizontal asymptotes come from boxing in the x's. Poles come from canceling. Intercepts are formed by letting each letter be 0. All right, next. We've got a bunch of inequalities to do. Now, all of the inequality problems are going to start by making sure you have a 0. So no matter what the problem looks like, you need to get a 0. So, by the way, I'm wearing my American flag shirt today because We the People is competing for the state championship. So, that's why we have our flag shirt on. I gotta get a 0, so what am I gonna do? I'm gonna subtract the 2x over. I know I'm gonna draw a number line, but I need to figure out where to put the dots on the number line. I'm pretty sure there's gonna be 2 of them, because it's x squared. Where are they coming from? How am I going to figure out where they are? I have to factor. And how does that thing factor? Take out an x. So where will these dots be? What will be the labels here? 0 and 2. That's exactly right. 0 and 2.
How did you get 2x? Like mine says x squared is less than 4x. Or mine was the wrong problem.
think you're on the wrong problem. Yeah, I'm on practice test 3. I'm not sure which one you're on. Just practice test 3. All right, now I gotta pick a number because I have to figure out where to shade. I have to figure out where to shade. So I have to pick a number, any number. So what do I pick? 1. 1's in here. So if you put in 1, you get 1 times negative 1. Is that less than 0?
Yes.
So you shade where the 1 is. And that then is the answer to the question. Because you alternate. So if that one is shaded, then obviously these are not. And that's it.
And we don't shade in the top.
Oh, yes, Sean, thank you. The dots need to be colored in. Thank you, Sean. You're exactly right. All right, now we've got a little bit tougher problem. But we're going to start it exactly the same way because when we have an inequality, we have to have a 0. So we'll start doing exactly what we did here, which is what? Subtract the 2. Now this is a little harder. What do we have to do now? We have to do something with this mess right here. What do we need to do with it? We need to get a common denominator, which will be this number right here, x plus 5. So we have to multiply this one by x plus 5 over x plus 5 so that both of the fractions now have x plus 5 in their denominator. So the numerator, might be really careful here, the numerator is x minus 1 minus 2x minus 10. So we have a grand total of negative x minus 11 over x plus 5. Now, I know we're going to have 2 dots on the number line. And I know the bottom dot is going to be at negative 5. But all these negatives here kind of mess me up. So I'm going to actually write that one out to figure out where that dot goes. Looks like negative 11. So the top dot goes at negative 11 and the bottom one goes at negative 5. Remember, when you put them on your number line, they have to be in order, like they would be on the regular number line. Sean, do I have my open dots right this time? Yep. Now let's pick a number. 1. Now remember, you're picking 1. 1 is out here, which is fine, but that's the area we're checking. So if I put in 1, I get negative 1 minus 11 over 1 plus 5. That's negative 12 over 6. Is that number bigger than 0? No. So that means where 1 is doesn't get shaded. So this is shaded right here. And that's your answer. Again, that alternates. So it's really easy. Just check one section and see if you're going to shade it or not. This one already has a 0, and it's already factored. So I can go straight to the number line, and I'm going to have a dotted 2 and a dotted -1. Would you agree with that? What makes this problem tricky? That right there. That means that you're going to pick a number, pick a number, pick a number. You're not going to be able to pick just one and alternate. You have to try 3 different numbers. So, what would be a number out here? -2. -2 minus 2 is -4 squared is 16. -2 plus 1 is -1. Is 16 times -1 greater than 0? No. So I'm not going to shade that part. All right, what's a number in here? 1. 1 minus 2 is -1 squared is 1. And 1 plus 1 is 2. Is 1 times 2 greater than 0? Yep, so I'm going to shade in there. Pick a number out here. 3. 3 minus 2 is 1, squared is 1. 3 plus 1 is 4. Is 1 times 4 greater than 0? Shade out here. This is a tricky problem because when you look at that and I say, okay, now the answer, I need an answer. The answer is everything that's shaded. You're kind of tempted to do this, aren't you? This one's a little tricky though because that dot right there is open. So I can't say everything bigger than -1. 2 can't be included. Do you see what I'm talking about? See how that dot's open? Now, if this had been an or equal to, then these dots would be filled in. Then could I get away with saying x is greater than or equal to -1? Yeah, so you just got to pay attention to that. If the dot in the middle there is open, you need to exclude that number. Alrighty, I think there's one more inequality. I'm going to go ahead as I copy it down and get 0. Now, when you see all those terms, do you think grouping? Yeah. Unfortunately, if you kind of check out the numbers, Brock, you want to sit up, please? When you see all those numbers, you probably anticipate that you're not going to be able to group. Do you see what I'm trying to say? It doesn't seem like I'm going to have any common parentheses. So, what do I do if I can't group? Someone said quadratic formula. No. It's not a quadratic equation. Do not attempt to use the quadratic formula unless your equation is squared. So someone else said synthetic division. I like that idea a lot. There are lots of PRRs because the factors of 24 are many. So, I don't know, what do you want to try? 2? Oh my goodness. I know, imagine that, 2 worked. Now what does that mean in terms of my number line? I know one of my dots is going to be at 2, right? Where are the other ones going to be?
Find it out.
Well, I'll figure it out by factoring this. Now, if you really, really wanted to, you could use the quadratic formula on this. I don't think you need to. X minus 4x plus 3. So remember, we have a dot at 2. Now we also have a dot at 4 and -3. So -3, 2, and 4, those are our dots. They are filled in. Now I'm going to plug in a number, right? What am I plugging it into? Not just here. There's another factor. Don't forget. These are the factors. Don't forget the one you guessed is also a factor. All right, what would be a good number to pick? 1? 1 gives me -3 times 4 times -1. So I put in 1, 1, 1. What do I get when I multiply -3 times 4 times -1? 12. Is 12 bigger than 0? So wherever 1 is, it's shaded. So I guess that's right here. If that gets shaded, then so does this. And my answer is everything between -3 and 2 or bigger than 4. Now there's a lot of steps to that problem, but it's not hard. You got it. All right, so that's it for the inequalities. Remember the inequalities, you gotta get 0, you gotta put dots on a number line and shade. This is not an inequality, this is an equation. Right? Now, your job is to multiply by whatever it takes to cancel out all these denominators, right? And you have lots of options. Some of you are way overcomplicating it. So if you want, just multiply by every denominator. So 3x and 6. You don't have to do this, but this is an option for those of you that keep missing it. So the 3 will cancel. What am I left with here? It's all times 12x. Here I'm left with 72 and 15x. I got 24 as my answer. Now, those of you that looked at the problem and said, the common denominator is 6x, so I'm just going to multiply by 6x. That's fine, but look at the answer you're going to come up with. Aren't you going to get the same answer? Yeah. Multiply by whatever denominator you want. As long as it cancels everything out, it's fine. Don't overthink it. Don't waste a bunch of time worrying about it. Multiply by some denominator. First thing we need to do here. Yeah, that needs to be factored. Just like with the very first problem we did today, we had a fraction that had a factorable piece. We need to get it factored. If it factors, factor it. what could I multiply by that would get rid of everything? I heard someone say it, x minus 2x plus 2. Hopefully you'll see some canceling. I have x squared minus 2x minus 1 equals 2x plus 4. Does that look okay to everyone? All right. Now what? We don't need to do any factoring until we have it set equal to 0. So we'll move the 2x over and the 4 over. Now we have it set equal to 0. So we can factor it or use the quadratic formula. I think it factors. Now, what do we have to worry about with this kind of problem? Does anyone remember? Extraneous roots? I don't think we have them in this case though, because what would make these denominators 0? This one would be 0 if we had x is negative 2, and this one would be 0 if we had x equals 2. Well, we don't have either one of those, so I think we're good. Both of those answers work. Alright, the only thing left are our 2 word problems. So the first one has Chandler and Laura doing an econ project. What's our setup here? 1 over someone alone plus 1 over the other person alone equals 1 over together. So, every time you do one of these problems, gang, you're going to have 1 over plus 1 over equals 1 over. So what have we got? 1 over 10 plus 1 over x equals 1 over 8. This is just like the problem I just erased. You can multiply by whatever you want. It's going to cancel out a 10, an x, and an 8. So what are some choices that I have to multiply by that would cancel out a 10, an x, and an 8? 80x? Definitely that would work. Can you think of anything else? 40x, that would work. Lots of choices. I'll use 8 times 10 times x. So the 10's cancel out 8x plus 80 equals 10x. So 2x equals 80 and x equals 40 hours. So it takes her 40 hours to do the job by herself. Anybody have a question about that? All Xing stuff. So we gotta start filling in these 6 parentheses. So our percentages are 53 and 30 and 45. And I got how much? 53, and I have 12 gallons of 45. So what goes in that empty parentheses? 12 minus x. 12 minus x. It's got to be 12 minus x. 12 is the total. 12 is the total. This is the total amount. If this had been the empty parentheses in the problem, then it would be 12 plus x, because this is the total. They get added to make this one. They get subtracted back here. Every time you do this, your empty parentheses is going to be here or here. If it's here, it's 12 minus x. If it's here, it's 12 plus x. Right? All right, so here we go. Remember, you will have a calculator if you remember to bring it. Gotta be a graphing calculator. Double check my arithmetic. I think it's okay. But I don't know. Already made one mistake today, so it's possible we make some more. I got 7.83 gallons. I think gallons, yeah. I think that's right. Anybody else get that?
Yeah.
Okay. Look, it's not even 8:30 and we have finished the entire test. That's the entire test. So, you know time is not going to be an issue for you tomorrow. Or Wednesday, yeah, whenever you do it. All right, so we got some options here about what we can do. We can, the quizzes I just turned back, we can do something from those if you can't figure out what you did wrong and you want to see how it should have been done. We have extra word problems we can do, or we can do anything that you want to practice. So we just took the whole test. We're thinking about, okay, what might I miss on Wednesday?
Grass. The grass. The grass.
We're reviewing for a test. In our next class, we have a test. Gavin?
On the quiz, I have a question.
All right, let's do, he wants to do one of the quiz questions. So we will do that right now, the first one. All right, so some of you had this quiz, some of you didn't. Everybody has to know how to do the problem. So let's do it. All right. How would you start this problem? Why don't you write it down either on the desk or on a piece of paper. Work along with us, make sure you have it. Remember, if you're going to write on the desk, make sure you use one of the erasers. Okay, how do we start? What do we need to do first?
Write it down.
Exactly. Did you hear Liam? He said we need to break down or factor this guy. And that factors by pulling out an X, the GCF. Very good. Everything okay back there? Okay. All right. Now, remember what we need to do? We need to multiply by something that will make the denominators cancel out. So what would that be? X plus 1 and X. You need both of them, Emmett, because if we don't multiply by both of them, this won't cancel. So we're going to multiply by both of them. David, I think this may have been one of the a problem like the one you were concerned about the other day.
Yeah.
You paying attention?
No.
No? He is. All right, so here we go. So we have x minus 3, x plus 1, plus 3 equal to 3x. So Gavin, you still with us? Everything look okay to this point? Okay, but now you see what, okay. So you know you need to FOIL this out? Gideon, what do you think we ought to do now? Yep. So what have we got here? We got x squared minus 2x. And those cancel. Sean, what do you think we ought to do now? Get a 0. Absolutely. When in doubt, get a 0. Get a 0. We got a quadratic equation, so let's move this over. So we'll have x squared minus 5x. You know what to do next? Factor. How would I factor that? Yeah, that's right. Just like you factored this. How did we factor that? We just took an x out. So we're just going to take an x out. So we have x and x minus 5. So what are our answers then? X equals 0 or x equals 5. What do we have to be careful of on problems like this? Extraneous roots. Do we have any? Whoa, 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 whoa.
Yeah, we do.
What happens if I put 0 right here? Beep, beep, beep is right. We would have a big problem. So the only answer to the problem is 5. Remember, extraneous roots happen when you plug in your answer and it makes a 0 in the bottom. All right, Gavin? Good? All right, anybody else have either a type of problem you want to practice or a specific problem you want to practice? Lauren? Yeah, a word problem? All right, so Lauren wants to practice one of our mixture problems. So let's say we have, we want to know how much 18% solution needs to be mixed with 12 gallons of 24% solution to get a 20% solution. Okay? So how much 18% needs to be mixed with 12 gallons of 24% to end up with 20%? Tessa, what's our strategy here? Perfect. So what would be in all these parentheses then? We have all these amounts. Emmett, we have all these amounts and percentages. Can you help me fill them in? What would they be here?
18% is
Well, this one's 18, yep.
and then your second one's 24,
Yep.
and then your last one's 20.
Perfect.
And then in the middle you have 12 gallons for
And
your
12
amount.
gallons of 24, so we got a 12 there. We have our good old how much out here. So what's in that one?
12 plus X.
12 plus X, very good. These two are getting added together to end up with the final amount. So if you remember to bring a calculator, you can certainly use one. Anybody have a calculator? I should know this. Check my arithmetic, would you please? This is always tricky if you're not using a calculator. Remember when you subtract, it's not going to be 0.2, it's going to be 0.02. I got 24. Anybody else get that? Is anybody checking me, or are you just blindly writing down?
I trust you.
No, trust me, Sean already caught me in a mistake today, so we gotta make sure you're keeping an eye on me. I think I'm okay. All right, Lauren, did that help? Any more questions about that? Remember, this is the total. How do you find the total? Yeah, right? Totals are adds. You add together to get the total. So if you have X gallons and 12 gallons, that has to be 12 plus X gallons. Right? All right, who else has a problem, either specific or just in general, that we need to practice? Sean?
Can we do another graph?
Yep.
I did read mine.
Okay, so we're going to find all of the vertical and horizontal asymptotes, the holes, the x-intercept, and the y-intercept. And we're going to draw a picture of it. Mr. Shepherd, how do we start? Factor. Factor everything. So let's see. Watch the top, you guys. How does the top factor? Please check your work. Watch it. How does it factor?
X minus 2, X minus 1.
Okay, that's what I thought you would say. That's why I want you to double check. That makes sense. I mean, it's very logical, but it's not right. Because look what happens when you FOIL it out. you get x squared minus 2x minus 3x plus 6.
X minus 6x plus 1.
Exactly. But kids, that could be a deadly mistake. You think, oh, it's just a factoring mistake. Well, that's going to mess up
Don't
everything.
do that with this.
You've got to factor correctly, so take the time to double check. So what'd you say it is, David?
X minus 6x plus 1.
That sounds a lot better. That's going to give me,
What are those probably be on the test?
that's going to give me exactly what I want if I FOIL it back out. So what's in the denominator then? How does the bottom factor?
X plus 1, X minus 1.
Yep, x plus 1, x minus 1. Sean, pay attention.
This is your question.
Well, David, everything was fine till you moved up there. If you can't control yourself, we'll get you someplace else. What happens? Cancels. All right. That's good news and bad news. It's just means this is what we're going to graph now, which is a much more simple problem. What does this tell me? The fact that I had a cancellation, what does that tell me? There's going to be a hole in the picture. And where is the hole going to be? -1, where x is -1. And how am I going to find the y? Plug it in where? Here, right? Here. So if I plug in -1, I get -1 minus 6 over -1 minus 1. -7 over -2, so that is 7/2. So on your graph, you're going to put a nice little open circle at -1, 7/2. Remember, if you're not sure about where to put 7/2, think of it as a mixed number. 3.5. All right, so now our attention is completely focused on the box. What else do we know? About asymptotes or intercepts. What do we know? Vertical asymptote, very good, Brent. Vertical asymptote is at x equals 1. Why do, Jackson? Why do we know the vertical asymptote is at x equals 1? Because it's what makes the denominator 0. Very, very good. It's the excluded value. It's what x cannot be. So it is a vertical asymptote. Perfect. All right, what can you tell me about the horizontal asymptote? Y equals 1. And it's y equals 1 because of this right here. Or you could go all the way back to the beginning and look at this. So my horizontal asymptote is y equals 1. Beautiful. Kayla, how do I find intercepts? Yeah, you put in a 0 for one of the letters. So if we look at the box, that's where we're looking, and we put in a 0 for the x, it would say y equals -6 over -1. So if I put in a 0 for x, I get 6 for y.
That's crazy.
And then I'll do 0 for y. So if I put 0 in for y, I multiply this over here, it still stays 0, so I'm solving that, which means x is also 6. So now we've filled in everything we were supposed to fill in. Sean, is there any one of those that you have a question about? Sean? You sure? All right. So now I got to draw the picture. Can you see how it looks based on what you've got here so far?
Yes.
Remember, they follow their asymptotes. Am I done? No, we have the whole other half here, right? So again, if your points, when you do all that stuff, if your points that you plotted don't end up generating that picture, a picture like that, could be here and here, go back and double check your points because you probably made a mistake. All these should be variations of the reciprocal function. I'm not going to put one of those tricky wild ones in there on the test. All right, we have time for one more. Specific problem or type of problem. Oh, look at all the hands. Will. What kind of inequality? Look at your practice test. It's the practice test number 3. And tell me which one it is. Amuna?
The ones that are squared, so inequality where.
Okay, well wait, I gotta do Will first, and then if we have time, we'll do that one, unless that's what he wants to do. That's what you wanna do? Okay, so they wanna solve an inequality that's already been factored for you.
Straight to the number line.
So you can go straight to the number line. We're gonna have dots on the number line where -2 and 3. They are going to be colored in. And with all of your inequalities, once you get the dots on the number line, we pick a number, right, to figure out where to shade. This one is different because picking a number isn't enough. You have to pick a number here, and here, and here. Okay? Whatever order you want doesn't make any difference. So, what would be a number over here to pick? -3. -3 plus 2 is -1. Squared is 1. -3 minus 3 is -6. Is 1 times -6 greater than 0? No. So this does not get shaded. Will, you with us? You with me? I'm doing? All right, so we'll pick a number in here. 0, great choice. So 0 plus 2 is 2, squared is 4. 0 minus 3 is -3. Is 4 times -3 bigger than 0? No. So that one isn't shaded either. All right. Lamuna, pick a number out here. 4. 4 plus 2 is 6. Squared is 36. 4 minus 3 is 1. Is 36 times 1 bigger than 0? Yes. So that gets shaded in. And our answer is just everything bigger than or equal to 3. Oh.
Well, that's all right. Just waiting for me.
Oh.
Just the number 1.
Sorry. Okay. Let me see. Oh, that's all the time we have, unfortunately. So we do have flex today, I think. I think we also have flex tomorrow.
Not really.
So please, please, please